transmission of awakened mind, spontaneously present by nature, is the summit of the most majestic mountain, not created, yet ensuring all that has ultimate meaning. Exalted above all, it is the supreme and most majestic spiritual approach. Once one has reached the summit of a majestic mountain, one can see the valleys below all at once, while from the valleys one cannot see what it is like at the summit. Similarly, Ati, the Vajra heart essence, is the pinnacle spiritual approach and sees what is meaningful in all others, while the lower approaches cannot see its ultimate meaning. Therefore, it is the pinnacle, the peak experience, which is spontaneously present. It is like a great wish-fulfilling gem that, if prayed to, ensures all that is wished for as a matter of course. Such is not the case for ordinary things. Since the Vajra heart essence is the spontaneous presence of the three kayas, Buddhahood is ensured in and of itself, within the basic space of natural rest. It does not require effort or achievement. That is its superiority. Although those in lower approaches strive through acceptance and rejection, they accomplish nothing for eons. What a great debility. Longchenpa, the basic space of phenomena, we go on. That's page 53, the Padma translation version. How y'all doing? I mean, tell you what, that fire experience, boy, that really blew up, blew my mind, blew me out of the water, made a lot of things shift, and a lot of things happen. The funny thing happened was that, I just let them use the bathrooms and stuff, and, there's still not full containment, and the air is still unhealthy, and it still makes me feel like I'm in toxic, kind of shock in my body a lot, like weird, like why do I feel so weird? Well, I mean, you're either dehydrated or you're breathing in this noxiousness for days, 24 hours a day, and it affects, it has an effect on a lot of people's health. But the thing that affected me was the PTSD trigger. So now I hit allostatic overload way faster than I would normally, and I was already hitting it pretty fast, more than normal, due to assuming a position. And when I assumed a position, I wasn't trying to assume a position. You feel me? So I got quite a lot of that, and it created a lot of stress. So with the fire, anyways, I don't know. I just couldn't stop. I couldn't not be tearful whenever I see firefighters, and I'm just, my gratitude and my admiration and my respect is just, I just honor them forever. And as a practitioner, I try to get into the dimension of flame with the Dakini. Dance with the immortal Dakini, and it's not an easy dance because you get shredded if you hold on to any aspect of your existence. So Darren's working on it, but in and out, here and there, we do our best to keep working on it. It's been decades, so things move along. But how can you practice and how can you apply when you're in the middle? I'm an addict. I'm trying to deal with a major crisis and then the after effects of it and everything. And something made me feel really good. 3 different groups of cute, fit girls in their 20s, firefighters, come over and ask for me by name and ask for me, what can I do for you? What could I get you some paper towels? And they're like, can we pet your dogs? And I'm just, yeah. Where are you from? Oh, Reading. Oh, Reading. Wow, I've driven through that fucking sand dune. Well, it's a straight field, but you're grateful to hit Reading. Trust me. After you drop out of the Siskiyou Pass and it's freezing, and you hit Reading, you're like, oh my God, please flat ground. Anything but icy freeway. Anything but icy mountain. Nasty, gnarly, huge. That's a gnarly pass, boy. So in that case, Reading's a blessing, but. I just was grateful, and then a couple days later, a truck full of, I opened the door and there's a cute, skinny, sunglasses holding a card, and I'm like, in in fireproof clothing. And then there's like a truck full of them out there. I go out there and I'm like, what? You're the cutest firefighter I've ever seen in my life. What are y'all doing here? And they're like, we just want to say thank you. And they gave me a card, and they'd all written in it, and they'd said something nice, and they had their fingerprints of their charcoal from their firefighting. And for that I left just a few later, after, not in front of them again. I gushed in front of them like 57 times. I couldn't stop it. And the fact that these ladies came back and didn't think I was like, they were just like really beautiful, really courageous, gorgeous people. All of them, the guys and girls. I just was like, you guys are just in my honor forever, And they did that, and they came, then they gave that to me. And that was so meaningful to me because, for many reasons, I'm an addict in recovery for decades and still have the self-esteem of a, younger person. And, then a couple days later, another female comes to the door and says, are you Darren Littlejohn? Yeah, I just want to give you this in our appreciation. And they're like, the whole community wrote a thing. The whole community, all the professionals and the staff. And I was like, I'm not me, it's you. Or the hero. You're the hero. If I could serve you for 2 seconds, that'd be my honor. If I could do anything for you at all, ever. I said, I used to like nurses best, but she goes, no, it's firefighters, huh? And I said, hell yes, young lady. You tell them if anybody likes older guys. I said, I ain't got no money, but I got a big heart. So it's a heart of compassion. Try to be in the wisdom space, And I'm just still also at the same time of feeling like super accomplished and super heavy duty in terms of like all the stuff that I got through over the past couple of months and just achieved things I never thought possible. I also hit a bunch of, peaks in stress and was treated unfairly and treated poorly in many ways from many different, angles. But, agreements were not kept and things were just it was very difficult. So I went through all kinds of stuff, and the stress of the fire just tipped it over, man. And I got through it, and I'm sitting here with y'all now. But what I wanted to talk about is how I handled that versus how other people might handle that, or how we handle any kind of stress versus other people, with the idea of being a regulated or dysregulated. So dysregulated might sound negative, but when I meet a person who, for example, I'll give you the perfect example. And you're an addict, you're traumatized, you're in recovery, if you're listening to me. And you're not listening for any other reason. It would be boring. It wouldn't make any sense. So I know who I'm talking to in my show, always, and I'm talking to you, and as clearly and deeply as I can with as much as I possibly have to offer, right? So take this to the bank, all right? Take this medicine with you right now. So I went over to a guy and asked him how he's doing, and he had said he was struggling a bit with his, the breathing part, and I said to him, yeah, and I got the anxiety and the PTSD, and he looked at me and he goes, that's funny, my nephew has that, and I don't even know, what is that? I don't even know what that is. What is that? I go, what do you mean? What is what? And he goes, anxiety. And, this guy's like 70, or something, around there, 65 something. And I go, you don't know what anxiety is? He goes, no, what is it? What is it like? And I try to go through a description, right? So, it's not so easy to make people understand, but I'm like, if you're a kid and you're eating breakfast and somebody comes up behind you, like, randomly at different times and days and smacks you in the back of the head, flips your cereal bowl over in your lap and tells you and yells at you to clean it up, and that happens to you, like, times that you can't predict, you might feel anxious. It's a stress. It's a feeling of needing to go and not being able to go. So that's what we're going to talk about in this series, the regulation versus dysregulation series. And that sounds exciting to my boo-boo over there. So I'm just going to read this, and and see how you all accept it. Okay, we're going to go through topics I wrote about in compassionate recovery that you need to know, because I'm tired of trying to fit in as a dysregulated addict in a regulated world where people look at me like I should be able to do something I can't do. Change the color of your skin, change your sexual orientation, change how tall you are, right? There's certain things you don't change. And people don't understand why a person wouldn't have a regulated certain nervous system like they do. So for me to understand that, I wrote, like 500 pages. I spent 5 years or so on it, maybe up to 4.5 years on it. So I want to go through some of this. We spent a long time in, compassion, in refuge, and bodhicitta, and the practices of a bodhisattva, and lots of different practices and stuff along the way. So let's talk now about the aspect of being an addict and about being traumatized and having an ACE score. But really, let's just talk about the nervous system to start, okay? Hello and welcome to the 12-Step Buddhist Podcast. I'm Darren Littlejohn, a fellow traveler on the path of recovery. I've been where you are. I've felt the pain, the confusion, the fear. I've been 16, lying in a fetal position on the bathroom floor, my face bruised from a beating, hair chopped, identity obliterated, out of my mind with debilitating agony. But I've also found a way out, a way forward, a way to heal. And that's what I want to share with you. In this new series, we're going to explore some of the key concepts from my book, Compassionate Recovery, Mindful Healing for Trauma and Addictions. We're going to delve into the nervous system, stress, allostatic overload, the window of tolerance, and all these elements intertwine, and how all these elements intertwine with mindful healing for trauma and addictions. Today we start with the nervous system. It's like the body's electrical wiring, a complex network of nerves and cells known as neurons that carry messages between the brain and the rest of the body. It's the body's communication superhighway, and it's as crucial to our survival as the air we breathe. But why should we, as recovering addicts, care about the nervous system? Because understanding it is key to understanding stress. And stress, my friends, is a major trigger for relapse. We need to understand our enemy to defeat it. And in this case, our enemy is not just the substance or behavior we're addicted to, but also the stress that pushes us toward it. And even if it's not pushing us toward it, it's contributing to us eventually getting there. Like, we're going to break at some point, right? If you know the 37 signs of relapse or whatever it is, the old booklet, there's a lot of symptoms of relapse. So continuing, the nervous system is split into two parts: the central nervous system, our body's command center, and the peripheral nervous system, our body's messengers. With the peripheral nervous system, we find the autonomic nervous system, the silent puppeteer controlling involuntary functions like heartbeat, digestion, and breathing. This system is further divided into the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. The sympathetic, our body's alarm system, prepares us for fight or flight. The parasympathetic, our body's peacekeeper, helps us rest, digest, and heal. In the episodes to come, we'll delve deeper into these systems and see how understanding them can help us navigate the stormy seas of stress, trauma, and addictions. We'll learn how to recognize when our body is preparing for a fight or flight response, and how to use mindfulness and compassion to bring ourselves back to a state of rest and healing. So that's kind of the intro to the series. And we're going to talk about the stress system just a little bit. And even if we just give it building blocks without going into any detail, like, I'm not going to look into notes right now. I'm not going to open my book and read to you. I read to you that intro. So, what is stress, right? There are parts of our system that need to move when it's necessary to move. And, we're seeking things like, food and warmth and stuff like that. And we're completely designed, down to the smallest component of DNA, we're designed to move forward towards that thing that we need to survive. Our whole architecture, everything about the way the body looks, everything that we do, everything is projected forward to be seeking. And stress is necessary to get out of that homeostasis or out of that resting place, right? So but you have to rest, and you also have to work. So we don't just sit in one place unless we're a Buddha and sitting in bliss forever. This is the world we live in. Our feet are on the ground. So our stress is basically a very normal thing that must occur for us to respond to the world and show up where we need to show up. Hunger is a kind of stress. Needing sex is kind of stress. Needing emotional support, again. So these are all things that are normal, but when we have the dysregulation as the result of early childhood trauma, then the developmental processes, and which are layered and built upon each other in a superstructure, really, of development into adulthood. So with these parts, and it's very complex, and it's not super mapped out, like we really know what's going on, but we have some information about the way things work, and enough to know, that what happens when we experience stress that we can't get out of. You see, stress that is, you're in, I don't know, like say the person who was unable to leave their room in China for 2 years due to lockdown, and they're in a tiny a studio apartment in a sky rise, and they have sentries outside the door, and they bring them food. And what kind of allostatic overload is that? So we'll talk about what all these things are, but we're just kind of talking in general terms about, what is stress? It's generally just that the chemicals in our system tell us to move our muscles and to go do things. And we have those signals based on our central nervous system, and based on lots of things that happen in the brain that tell us what we need and that we're, programmed to do to survive, or programmed at least to want, and then to with the ability to figure out how to get it. Or kind of our own artificial intelligence, I suppose, in that respect. But not to dive off into that. We're just talking about, we have a nervous system. Part of it goes on behind the scenes. You're not really making your heart beat or yourself breathe. You can control your breathing. And this is really a good segue. In yoga, we talk about this difference between the autonomic nervous system and going into things that we can control that are automatic, but we can still control them or influence them in some ways, right? And, the science isn't there that yogis can stop their heart for 2 months and then come out of it. But we do know that if we control our breathing, even just the slight constriction at the back of the throat, so that when you breathe in, it goes a little bit like, it sounds gross, but you can listen to your own. So in mine, it's like this. That's slight constriction, but you got to do it very, very, very deeply and very slowly on the inhale and exhale, and don't strain your throat. We know from thousands of yoga classes and tens of thousands of hours of all these things, we know that will help your heartbeat go down. You'll digest better. You control your breathing. You start to control these things that are normally not as in our realm of control, right? So the system is further divided into the sympathetic and parasympathetic, our body's alarm system, and our peacekeeper. So in an addict, in a person who's been dysregulated, been caused to become a dysregulated person, that means that we don't regulate our stress properly. We can't regulate our stress properly. And because we don't regulate our stress properly, we become addicted to things that we can control. Like, I can control the amount I take, even though I can't really control the amount I take. That's called addiction, right? But I'm controlling it. I can put it in my system, as opposed to not being able to control how I feel, and to feel overloaded all the time and overwhelmed or completely repressed or jacked up out of your mind, or unable to make decisions, or confused, or making very poor life decisions, or lashing out, or alienating yourself and other people, or stealing and not caring about others, and all these things that we get in addiction. When addiction is the deal, there ain't nothing else. There's no other. You'll say anything and you'll do anything, and you think, you will. Who hasn't? Who hasn't? I used to know pill addicts. Well, those guys will blow your mind at what they'll do. Break their own bones to get pills. So the addict is the focus, The addict has the focus. It's the going forward. And the going forward just goes berserk, 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 and it just like frazzles out because we're dysregulated from so many things. And the stress doesn't we can't monitor it, we can't regulate it. And for us, it becomes our way of life and our worldview to see things as chaotic and stressful and always agitated, and we never really learn to relax. And some of us never learn to relax, even in recovery. I've known many people with many years of sobriety that could never meditate. But what we're trying to do here is understand how to be still with what our experience is, even if our experience is dysregulated, okay? So what I'm talking about is that whether you're regulated or dysregulated, you can regulate. It doesn't matter. It's like samsara and nirvana. It's like you have to be out of the dualistic vision of it, right? In order to regulate, you got to not worry about regulating or being dysregulated. You have to be, in a sense, spiritually regulated. That's a good title. I think we'll call this series something like that. Getting spiritually regulated. And in that respect, then everything else can fall into place in our body, speech, and mind. But we have to understand that the world and the universe is an energy pattern, and us as light configurations of energetic patterns, and things that are at levels that our immediate senses can't produce, but we intuitively know and then we can even train ourselves to really drop into Buddha and really see it all in the vast expanse. But this is not accepting or rejecting regulation or dysregulation, right? So yes, we're integrating the Buddhism in with the conversation about regulating stress. What I just want you to know is that this is kind of the intro. We're going to talk about this for a while, but we're not dropping or leaving behind the topic of Buddhism or recovery. It's all together. It's all integrated, because I have to tell you how I deal with this. And that's what I try to share on the show so that people can understand. And I don't care how wealthy you are or famous you are. If you're an addict, you're an addict, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. Poor or rich, Yale or jail, it don't matter, right? So an addict is an addict. And this dysregulation is certainly part of our development of addiction, and it's certainly part of our problems in recovery. And it has for many people. So I want you to understand one thing, and it's going to take me probably 20 episodes to go through it. But when we get to the end of this, or as we go, hopefully you can start to see it and experience it, is that there's a difference in the universe, just like there's a difference between me being an addict and the normie being the normie, where they'll never understand when they say, hey, stop drinking, and they go, you stop drinking, you lost your job. And I mean, like, well, I lost my job, so I got to fucking drink about 10 times more. And it's a reason to drink more, not a reason to get sober. But a regulated person, a non-alcoholic, will understand that they need to stop, and it's not healthy, even if it was getting out of control, even if it got out of control in college or whatever. I wrote about this in the 12-Step Buddhist, but the idea that we're trying to get across, I'm trying to get across to you, is that if I understand that I can't be like everybody else. Just like I can't be a normie, I got to understand that I'm with my people, I'm with my addicts in recovery, I'm with my Sangha, I'm with my sober Sangha, with my recovery refuge, all this, Dharma recovery, I'm with my group, however you have Sangha, group, community. I'm in that with these, and there's us and there's them, but we don't want to be separate, but we got to understand that we really are in a different capacity so that we can then integrate and work in the world. But first, we have to understand. Quit beating yourself up for not being regulated, because your buddy or your family member or your other associate or mate can turn around and be like, hey, nothing phases me. It's like my friend says, what is anxiety? The person he doesn't know what the word means. He's never experienced it in his life. He doesn't have a dysregulated nervous system. He grew up right in the first parts of the years that enabled him to have that development and the encouragement and the modeling. And I don't have that. And it's hard for me to understand how he can be regulated all the time, and it's impossible for him to understand what it means to be dysregulated, because he doesn't wind up in stupid, stressful, chaotic, addict experiences, because he's not one of us, right? So we want to understand, this whole book, Compassionate Recovery, describes this in a sense, in many more things, but I want to talk about the material. The book's been out over a year, and I'm moving into other topics as I go, but we're using this as a foundation to build into these other topics as we go, okay? But I want to make sure that on the show, not just saying, read the book, okay, please read the book, get the book, and also, let me help you understand it a little bit, because, maybe it's a little heavy for people. It's a big, thick book, and it's got a lot of science and stuff. So let me try to help you, learn it for yourself so that it's useful, okay? So we're going to get more into it. I just want you to put this food for thought out for you this week, okay? We're going to talk about what stress is. Understand that your nervous system is different from other people's, but understand that not just in your head, understand that the next time it comes up, okay? And the next time a stressful moment comes up, just like I did earlier, I pause, put my hand on my heart, have a nice deep inhale, hold it in a little bit with an open throat, and then let it out. Don't push it out. And linger in empty, vast, timeless, pure essence. All right, so that's where we're headed. That's what we're doing. We got to learn how to get non-dual with the regulation, dysregulation, samsara, nirvana, me, my insides, your outsides. Okay? We'll be talking again next week. Until then, peace out and namaste.